I want to talk about the relationship between the shape of the pattern and your overall shape. This is something that's subtle, but it can also help you get a better fit for your pants. I've talked about how to do a prominent behind adjustment where you actually angle the center back seam more to make more negative space inside your pants. Now that goes hand in hand with bringing the top edge of the center back seam closer to the middle of the leg. The grain line on this pattern is centered from hem to knee, and I cut off the bottom of the pattern just to make it bigger to work with. But you can see here that there's an equal amount of distance between the grain line down here, and then it just continues straight up and perpendicular to the horizontal balance lines. Now, when your center grain line is very, very close to your center back seam, that means the lion's share of the fabric to wrap around your body from waist through, your upper thigh is farther over to the side. Notice there's very little fabric on this half of the pattern. That works when you have a prominent behind because you need the negative space to sit down in it. But if you're looking at your pattern and you've extended the center grain line up to the waist and it's very, very close to the center back seam, and you're looking in the mirror and you're saying to yourself, okay, I have an average or flat behind. I don't have hip curves that are significant. You might want to say to yourself, gee, I think I need to move this over a little bit. And the reason why is fixing this or moving this over is actually going to create a better shape and balance the fabric on either side of the center grain line up between your waist and crotch level to allow the fabric to hang properly. This shape, and I like to say, look at the back crotch curve and think about it like it's a chair. So if you're sitting down in this, you can see you have much more room with this angled away from center. When you sew up this angled line, what that's doing is it's creating room for a prominent behind, just like a dart would. So the more angled this is, the more it's going to create a cup shape for your behind once it's sewn. And then adding in those darts will allow this flat piece of fabric to fit a curvy shape. If you don't have a curvy shape, what's going to happen is when you sew this angled center back seam up, you're going to end up with a lot of extra fabric inside your pants. When that happens, it's always a guessing game of how do I get rid of all that extra space inside. Taking it in deeper along the center back seam seems like that might be a good way to do it because you could pinch it out, but then you're making the negative space even bigger inside your pants. I'm all about these body-specific adjustments you can make to your pattern before you start fitting, and this fits in nicely with that. And I just want to show you what it looks like when the grain line is more centered on the back leg and how that would relate to a straighter figure or a figure with less curves. Now I've already drawn a second example here. The only difference between these two pattern pieces is I've shifted the top of the pattern so that the center back seam is straighter. There is less negative space, and you can see that the grain line up at the waistline is farther away from the center back seam. So this is going to fit somebody who has more of a rectangular shape, average or flat behind, and it's going to allow the fabric to hang from the waist and the full hip and hang straight down versus this one, where if you had that more rectangular shape, you'd end up with a lot of extra negative space, and it would cause weird wrinkles on your back leg that you wouldn't really be able to identify. The cool thing is the adjustment to fix this is very easy. Now there are a few ways I can do it, but because this is already pretty angled, I'm going to get my ruler. I'm just going to use this one. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to straighten this out a little bit. Okay, so basically what I'm doing here is I'm filling in some of my negative e's, okay? And then I'm going to take what I added here and I'm going to remove it over here, like this. Now, notice I'm going to keep the adjustment pretty similar in terms of where I end the adjustment. So I ended about here. So I'm going to do the same thing over here, and we're just going to end it the same way. So I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm adding this, and you can see what's happened now is that my grain line is now farther from my center back seam. And if I bring back my other version here, you can see that now they look pretty similar, right? And this is distributing the fabric on the back leg, so the center of the leg is more in the center of your body. You know, and the other thing it does, in addition to moving the grain line, again, away from center back, it's also straightening the crotch to agree with someone who doesn't have a prominent behind. So these things kind of work together. I highly recommend that if you're working with a pattern that doesn't have a center grain line marked on the pattern, because not all pattern designers will do that, sometimes a grain line on a pant leg is positioned in a way the designer wants it to be positioned on the fabric to get the desired effect from the fabric. The grain line I'm talking about in this video is finding the center of the back leg and then using that information to compare it to your silhouette or your curvy shape or lack thereof to make the fabric hang better from your waist and full hip. Remember, we're asking a flat piece of fabric to wrap around your body. So if we can get it to be more in agreement with your shape, you're going to have a much easier time fitting it onto your body. So this works in reverse as well. If you have a pattern that looks like this right out of the gate, you could also do the reverse adjustment. If you know you need more negative space to sit in, you can do the exact opposite of what I did to get rid of it. You can draw a more angled center back seam, and then you can add a like amount to your side seam like this. We're getting rid of this and we're adding over here. All right, and try to keep these even. I know I went down a little bit farther here, but basically now I've created a situation where the center back seam is closer to the center of the back leg to make room for a prominent behind and someone who's curvier. So I thought this was a fun topic to share with you guys. It's amazing. Every time I teach a class, I feel like I learn more new things. And that's why teaching is my favorite thing to do out of all the things I do here at J. Stern Designs. Any of these little nuggets might be the thing that you're missing to get your pattern to fit you the way you want to. So I hope you enjoyed this little discussion about the center grain line and the relationship between how close it is to the top of the center back seam. If you're wondering why I'm not mentioning the front leg, because the crotch curve is significantly shorter, doesn't have the similar problem where the center of the leg can be thrown off for your shape. I hope you enjoyed this little discussion about the center of the back leg, using a center grain line to determine how close the center of the pattern is to the top of the center back seam, and how to adjust it for your shape, whether you're curvy or straight. If you're enjoying my content, please like and subscribe. It helps me grow. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day.